Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. Have you ever stood back and watched someone make a decision that you knew was not going to end well? Maybe it was a team member, maybe it was a family member, a friend, a colleague, and you could see the mistake coming. You really wanted to step in, you really wanted to redirect, but you knew that you just had to let it play out and let them experience it for themselves. That's what this episode is about today. It's about the courage to let people learn the hard way. And this episode comes about because I have heard a pattern recently with a lot of my clients where they are unsure of when it's time to step back and let their team make mistakes versus when they should step in and save them. When you want to fix things for people, obviously you do it with good intention, but it ends up causing a lot of problems. Because there becomes this dependency upon you stepping in and guiding them and fixing things along the way. There are a lot of consequences associated with it. So we do care. We want people to be successful. We want to prevent frustration for the people we love and care about. We want to prevent failure. But sometimes we find that we have to do something very uncomfortable and let them experience the outcome for themselves. Let them learn the hard way. And I feel like we often hear that when it comes to parenting. Not jumping in and, fixing everything for your kid, letting them fail from time to time, letting them lose at something from time to time. And the same thing really does apply in leadership. You want to prevent failure for your people. You want to keep things moving. You don't want to hold the process up. You don't want things to take longer than they have to. You want to avoid frustration in your team. You want to keep that morale high, of course. But every time you rescue someone, you're sending the message that they still need you. As I said, dependence is going to increase. Their ownership is going to decrease. They're not going to be confident that they can take things on. They feel like they need to work alongside you still. And they're not developing the problem-solving skills that they will need to ever be able to independently do something. So really what you're doing is slowing their growth. I feel like we've talked about delegation time and time again on these episodes. And I've talked about the delegation process in general. But I think this goes beyond delegation and passing something to someone for the first time. You can witness that someone's about to make a big mistake that has nothing to do with the task you've assigned to them. But once you know the information, you have to decide what to do with it. So you kind of have to ask yourself, is stepping in going to help them or is it going to hinder their development? So I can think of lots of different scenarios over the years where things like this have happened specifically. I remember working with a leader who had a team member who consistently waited till the very last second to prepare for any meetings. They knew the meeting was coming. Maybe it was a recurring meeting that would happen every week. Obviously, the person knew that it was going to happen and that it was their responsibility to prepare so that they could properly facilitate the meeting. But every time the meeting would come, this person that I know would step in to save the other individual, help fix the presentation, adjust materials, just fill in the gaps that existed so that the team could continue to move on. The team would be successful and feel like it was a good use of their time. But really what she was doing was she was teaching this individual that they could continue to come unprepared and there would be no consequence for it. And so, at some point, she decided that she wasn't going to save the individual anymore. And this time, she was going to let the individual show up to the meeting feeling unprepared and let it play out the way that it was going to, not step in. And it was very uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for her because she knows she could have saved them. It was uncomfortable for the other people in the room to watch. But that is the moment where the lesson was learned, because from that point forward, the team member approached preparation differently because they experienced the consequence themselves. And sometimes that's what it takes, is that experience, someone experiencing it themselves, to get the lesson to stick, to understand the importance of making a specific decision. Things like that happen all the time. So it was tough to stand back and let it happen. But now, that individual is showing up prepared, never wants to be put in a situation again where they feel like they've let everybody else down around them. So there is a difference between supporting and rescuing. You're not just throwing someone to the wolves. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. I know we tend to have all or nothing thinking at times. So I think it's important to have the distinction as a leader. When am I supporting and when does it become rescuing? So support might look like providing perspective. How can we look at this in a different way? Asking really thoughtful questions that help guide someone to a solution. That's what coaching is, right? Coaching is support. It's acting as a guide and helping to uncover the best way forward for someone. So you're thinking through options together. That is supporting. That's not giving the solution. When you rescue someone, you're problem solving for them. You're not forcing them to slow down and ask the right questions. You're taking ownership of the outcome rather than having them take ownership, and you are removing any potential consequences before they happen. That is rescuing. So there's a really big difference between the two. So, I want you to ask yourself, when a situation comes up and you feel like someone is making a mistake or is about to make a mistake, are you helping this person think through the challenge, or are you removing the challenge entirely? Is it going to no longer exist for them? There's no possible consequence here. That if the answer is I'm removing the challenge for them, then you are rescuing, and that's not the direction to go. That is not going to help develop them over time. You think about this in parenting too. So, a kid forgets their homework, and you realize that that it was left at home. It was important to them. They had to get this project in today or this assignment in today. And so do you change your schedule around to go back to school and drop off the assignment? That's the question. Actually, this happened the other day when I was nervous about whether or not Caleb forgot his stuffed animal for a special themed day at school. And I thought, oh my gosh, if he left it at home, it's going to ruin his day. He's going to be upset all day. That's all he's going to be able to think about. He's not going to get anything accomplished. Do I go back home, get the stuffed animal, drive all the way back to his school, which isn't close, and drop it off? Or does it become a lesson? Well, luckily the situation resolved itself and it wasn't a problem to begin with. But I made the decision that even if it was at home, I was not going to rescue, that it was going to be a lesson, and I was not going to completely, change my day to fix the situation for something that is a stuffed animal. But do you let the child experience the consequence of forgetting something? Because if it is homework, if it is a project, well, next time they'll double check if they've learned the lesson and they've had a hard day because of it, or there was some sort of consequence. So the supporting is the asking the questions. What can we do differently next time to make sure that you don't forget things on a special day like this? Where might you set it where you're going to remember it? There's so many different ways to do it that is being supportive even after the fact, after the mistake has occurred. Or you can support leading up to it and just pull them aside and have a conversation and ask questions that help them arrive at, this is what I need to do. There are really examples around us all the time, but I think we do often see it in a scenario with our families, and whether or not you jump in and rescue them. So we know natural consequences can be a powerful teacher along the way. I think about in the classroom, we always talked about logical consequences. Is it a logical consequence to take recess away if they've done something totally unrelated to recess? Does that make sense? Do you want the consequence to somehow connect to the actual behavior that was a problem? And so we would always have discussions about, how do we handle this situation? What is a logical consequence? It's the same thing. We don't want to be harsh. We don't want to be punitive, but we want to help them make the connection between my choice causes specific outcomes. There's a connection between my choice and the outcomes that I see. Same way with adults. It's no different than with kids, right? When I make this choice, this is the outcome. So we want to lean in into the natural power of consequences and give them a chance to learn the hard way and not remove that for them. So when should you step in? How do I know if this is a time I should step in for a team member, for example? Well, number one, I always say, if someone's safety is at risk, then obviously you're going to want to step in. You don't want someone to get hurt when you knew what was coming. Then to me, I'd feel guilty forever for not stepping in. And I kind of take this to the extreme. Even when I'm like walking down the sidewalk, if I see that there's like a bump in the sidewalk, if I notice it, I have to point it out to the person next to me, because if they trip over that bump and I know I noticed it, I'm going to be upset with myself and I'm going to feel guilt because they got hurt because of me, not because of them. That's what I think in my mind, right? So we end up taking it on. We don't want someone to be harmed. We don't want a safety issue because we're not jumping in to help. So that's number one filter. Number two, is it an ethical issue? Is this situation, if you don't step in, is there going to be an ethical, moral issue occurring? If so, you should probably step in. To me, those are the most important times to do so. If there's anything beyond that, I think personally that it's okay to just let it ride and be there to support along the way as they're learning. It's a developmental learning experience. Those everyday mistakes that happen, those are developmental experiences. And if you think about things that you've learned over time, it's because you failed at them many times before you were successful. So we've all been through it plenty of times in our lives, and hopefully people have let you make mistakes, or you might still have some people in your life that you find yourself a little dependent on when making decisions, when you have a need. So I also was thinking about when I was planning for this episode, another example that actually has come up so many times, and that's the frustration of a leader who finds that people are always coming forward with issues but not solutions. Well, every time someone comes to you with an issue and you hand them the solution and they walk away with it, you're training them to come to you for solutions. And so that becomes a problem. So if you can just shift the thinking to, if someone is coming to you and sharing a problem and they ask for a solution, if you turn it around and simply ask, what do you think a solution is? That puts it back on them. It's frustrating for the individual to have it put back on them, but over time, they're going to start asking themselves and say, like, without even going to this individual, I know that he or she is going to ask me what I think the solution is. So I'm not going to go to him or her unless I have an idea for a solution. And it's teaching them to problem solve and think through challenges in advance and stop bringing only problems to the person. So then over time, people shift to only coming with solutions or not coming at all because they have the confidence to problem solve on their own. So sometimes the gift here is helping someone to learn to think for themselves and reduce that over dependence upon you. So instead of rescuing people, leaders need to coach. Part of my identity is being a coach. You hear me talk about coaching questions. All leaders should be able to coach, to ask open-ended questions that help people to get where they are. What options have you considered for moving forward? What outcome are you trying to achieve? What do you think the next step might be? What could you try differently next time? There's so many questions that you could ask to help you serve as a guide so that the person learns the lesson that you're hoping that they learn. And they become more independent in the future. So there are opportunities to apply this concept everywhere you look. And I'm sure that you see people in your personal life, even right now, that you just don't agree with the decision that you're making or they're making, and you're trying to decide whether you say something or not. My gut always tells me when it's a friend that's going to make a poor decision, like if I feel really strongly that someone's going to get hurt really badly, or moral or ethical thing, I might come forward and very directly say something. Otherwise, I might just ask some questions that show that I'm noticing and that I have concerns, but gets them to think through what direction to go in and what's best for them. Maybe it's just getting them to slow down enough to consider the possible impact. So hopefully you have gained a little confidence too in knowing, when do I support or when has it become rescuing? If you feel like you have someone in your life right now that is making mistakes, continues to make the same mistake, I hope that this episode has helped you to kind of create that filter for. Your filter doesn't have to be the same as my filter. So my filter, my non-negotiables, is someone going to get hurt or is it an ethical issue? Your filter might be different, but go ahead and figure out what that boundary is for you so you know when it's time to step up or it's time to step back. Well, going right along with this, this week's Leadership Unscripted, I thought matched perfectly, which I said in a previous episode that I'm trying to make sure that the challenges that people write in with kind of match the theme of the episode so that I am able to give ideas for implementation of what we were talking about in the episode. So this one worked out perfectly as well. For those of you that have not listened to the podcast before, you too can submit challenges. You can go to info@branchingoutpodcast.com, or you can email info@branchingoutpodcast.com, and we will hopefully share your challenge in an episode and give you some ideas for a solution. So this one is actually a little long. Sometimes they're just a sentence or two. This situation's a little bit longer, but I will share this with you now. So it says, I have one person on my team who always seems to focus on the negative. Whenever we introduce a new idea, they immediately point out what might go wrong. If we solve one concern, another one appears. In meetings, they often highlight problems rather than possibilities, and it seems to pull the energy out of the room. At first, I tried to stay patient and remind myself that maybe they were just being cautious or analytical. I've tried acknowledging their concerns and redirecting the conversation towards solutions. I've also tried encouraging them to bring ideas instead of just pointing out issues, but the pattern keeps showing up. Now it's starting to wear me down as a leader, and I can tell its effect on the rest of the team as well. Sometimes people hesitate to share ideas because they expect immediate criticism that might follow. I want to be fair, and I know people bring different perspectives to the team. At the same time, I'm wondering how long a leader should continue trying to redirect the person's behavior before deciding that dynamic simply isn't working. How do you turn around someone who constantly focuses on the negative, and how do you know when it might be time to let go? So I told you this was a long one. So there are a couple of things that popped out to me in this. I wanted to identify the things that were already tried. So I tried to stay patient and remind myself that maybe they were just being cautious or analytical. I love that. It's like thinking with DISC, right? What is their communication style? Oh, their personality is such that maybe they are cautious. They need, to make decisions based on logic or whatever it may be. I've tried acknowledging their concerns and redirecting the conversation towards solutions. That's what I was just talking about, right? How can we train someone to come with solutions, not just problems? This person also says they've tried encouraging them. It's kind of the same thing. I've also tried encouraging them to bring ideas instead of just pointing out issues. It's the same thing. Acknowledge the concern and redirect and encourage them to bring ideas. So all of that goes together. But they feel that the pattern is still showing up. So I think the very first thing I would do is try to separate whether it's like a healthy skepticism that's taking place or is this chronic negativity and what might be driving it. Not all criticism has to be bad, right? We do want people to naturally think in terms of risk and impact, potential obstacles, what could get in our way so that we can think of ideas to be proactive and overcome what situations might come up. So is the person raising the concern to improve the outcome, or they're just pointing out problems without contributing to a solution? And it sounds like for this person, they might just be simply pointing it out, and that's going to obviously drain momentum for the team. Whereas if it were healthy skepticism and they're doing it to raise concerns because they care about the outcome, they're trying to have a positive impact, that's going to strengthen ideas. That's going to help the team. But it doesn't sound like that's the case for them. But I wanted to kind of provide that filter for the benefit of others listening. Something else to think about is how you might address the behavior kind of head on, very directly. With the individual, I appreciate that you think critically, that you notice potential challenges, but at the same time, I notice that you're staying focused on what might go wrong. What I'd like to see is a balance where you're doing that and we're exploring possible solutions. Maybe you've already tried this. You kind of mentioned trying to refocus it. Don't know how you approach that, but very direct and specific, I think, is helpful in that situation. Then introducing the expectation, even if it's team norms that you're creating as a team, when someone raises a concern, they should also bring a potential solution or next step. That is the expectation moving forward. Have you sat down and created team norms? There are so many that could be associated with this, right? We raise concerns respectfully. We're going to focus on solutions, not just problems. We support forward movement. We don't shut down one another's ideas. Like, what are those norms that you want to have in place? But don't just come in and say, these are our new norms. You want it to be a conversation. You want buy-in from the group. And chances are, if people are already being negatively affected by it, if you give the opportunity for them to brainstorm norms and you ask the right questions and kind of guide in the right way, these things might come up very naturally and people will finally feel like they have an outlet to create this commitment as to the ideal environment for the team and maybe voice it in a way without directly saying to the person, you're creating a problem here. So maybe clarifying those team norms that could help the culture of the team. And then when you know that the expectations have been clearly stated and been documented, it's easier to then address the behavior if the issue continues, because now you've set the expectation. Before, it might have been like a suggestion, not an expectation. So then the question is, after you've set the expectation, does the behavior continue after norms are set? They're said verbally, they're in writing. Are they still, is the individual still affecting the culture, affecting the performance of the team, other people's abilities to participate fully? And at that point, in my opinion, if you've documented things along the way, it's a point where you have to protect the health of the team. That's your responsibility as a leader. So I would begin looking at consequences for it. And are they a good fit for the team, or are they going to continue to pull morale down? So at that point, you might have to make a more difficult decision. Letting go of people never seems very easy, and it's hard to decide when. But to me, if you have a paper trail and you've been documenting conversations that you've had, ways that you've reset expectations, and then instances where they have not followed through once those expectations are set, it makes it a little bit easier to make that decision and follow through on it. So hopefully that's helpful. It sounds like you've tried a lot of things, but maybe there's something in there that you could pull out and apply that you have not yet tried, or you've not used maybe the language or specific approach. So as I said at the beginning of that segment, if you have a challenge you want to share, please shoot us an email at info@branchingoutpodcast.com so that we can hopefully support you. I do have a lot of great guests coming up in the next series of episodes, and I'm excited to start getting some other perspectives on these challenges as well. I'm so used to having these conversations one-on-one with people and providing my solutions. I like hearing other people's solutions as well, kind of comparing the two. So I'm looking forward to also getting some of these folks writing in so that I can discuss these challenges with a future guest. So think about that. This episode, it obviously requires some courage to let people, I don't want to say fail, because I don't believe you fail until you stop trying, but letting people make the mistakes, letting people learn the hard way. And so what I want to challenge people to do is, the next time you see that someone is making a decision that could negatively impact them, their team, anybody around them, ask yourself, should I be stepping in? Because I've created this filter, right? What is this filter for me? What are my non-negotiables? Should I be stepping in? And then how do I support without rescuing? You might even have a situation recently where you just, by listening to this today, realized that you were rescuing and you should have supported. And maybe there's something you can even do about that, kind of retroactively. But I want you to reflect on that and at least kind of ask yourselves these questions moving forward, so you can determine what that balance is between being there and being supportive and letting them make the mistake on their own. Well, I have come to the end of the episode, and I hope you found value in it. I am always going to highlight the opportunity to get involved, whether it's going to be as a guest and you want to fill out an application on the website, branchingoutpodcast.com. We're always taking applications for guests. Right now, we're looking for guests for season 3. We are booked out through the end of this season, so that's exciting. Also, if you have any specific ideas or you want to get involved as a podcast sponsor, we would love to hear from you as well. So please reach out. If you did find value in this episode, or you know someone struggling with, someone in their life they feel like is making mistakes and they're not sure what to do, share this episode with them. And hopefully they can find something in it that helps them get through the situation and feel more confident that they are making the best decision decision in how they're approaching things. So I hope that you found value, and I hope that you come back and listen again next week. At Friday, noon Eastern Standard Time, another episode will be dropped if you want to catch it right when it comes out. I know I have some listeners, like if it is 12:05, they're wondering where the episode is. So please make sure you subscribe so you automatically get those notifications when they come out. You don't have to sit and stare at the computer and wait. We love to hear from you, so please reach out. And until next time, keep branching out.